All right, welcome everybody. This is the Budget Workshop 2023, July 26th, 2022. And we're here to talk about the governmental and special revenue funds. I'll hand it over to Mr. Forte.
Yeah, so you got a little bit of a different layout in your book.
Oh, hold on, sorry. Doc, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Penny?
Here.
Commissioner Curry?
Here.
Commissioner Danio?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Mayor Vito?
Here. Thank you. Now, Mr. Forte.
All right. So there's a little bit of a different layout in your book this time than the last time. It's a little bit easier to read than the printout that we got from Central Square. And if you go through this, if you had a chance to go through it, you'll see, like we mentioned the last time, most of the increases are going to be in the salaries due to the pay increases that we put in this year. And then the fuel cost, the result of the fuel cost increased the operational cost and the supply cost. Don't disregard the highlighted sections that you see in the revenues. That was for Susan's purpose of keeping track of what we've confirmed is an actual revenue and what's an estimate. So we're still waiting on, from an expenditure side, we're still waiting on insurance rate increases. We haven't gotten those in yet, and we expect those probably in the next 2 weeks or so. And then that'll help us round out the budget. So,
And we're waiting on the telecommunications revenue, which is not in yet as well.
yeah. And while we're just talking about revenues, with the gas tax, we're showing an increase in gas tax revenue next year. So is that gas tax an estimate from the state? It's about $100,000 more than what the previous years have been on a pretty static.
That is an estimate.
It's an estimate?
That's an estimate.
Is that our estimate, or my concern is that
The utility taxes are an estimate.
Gas tax.
the fuel tax on page 12.
It should be from the state, and there's only one of them that goes to this fund, the other one
Right.
is in
The
the
fuel
general
tax
fund.
is from the state, and we did receive that. They also had a revision that I put in as well.
Okay.
But the local option half-cent fuel tax is from the state, and we do have that.
The first local option looks like it's staying roughly the same as last year, but it's interesting to see that is up over 100,000, being that
Fuel costs are up and fuel use is going to go down.
right. And in
Yeah.
October,
Right,
there's
exactly.
no fees from the state.
Yeah,
gas
so
tax.
that's,
The sales tax holiday.
So that may be even
Whole
lower.
month.
Yeah.
but that's still projecting that to be the revenue?
Hold that up.
What page is that, 12?
12, yeah, page 12.
Yeah, my meeting on Friday with the secretary.
So this is the local option fuel tax spreadsheet. Let me see if I have this highlighted.
I don't understand the fuel going up, but why would the fuel tax go up in 2023 that much?
Yeah,
Well, it's a flat rate, it's not a
It's only going to
percentage.
show up if volume goes up.
So this is
Oh,
us
yeah.
right there. And where you're looking at the 185, Joe, which one were you looking at? The 185? 198?
That's
No.
the first
No.
option is the
We're looking at-
185.
331
No, not
429.
On page 12,
in the
There-
In the summary.
PowerPoint.
In the summary.
There's one that's a share from Volusia County. Remember the,
yeah, we have two, we have a 6 cent and we have a 5 cent.
right,
If it helps you, Susan, it says fuel tax fund 002.
So you're talking about the 131, which,
No, I'm talking about 2021 was 331, 620,
and this year is
632.
429,
Yeah.
951.
Right.
Okay, so if you look on this page, it gives you the detail of what that is. On the second page, it's behind these first group. On the second one, it tells you the detail of what that is. It's behind the 6 pages, it's the next fund, and it gives you the detail. It's the shorter page, it's all by itself, Fund 002. So it's the 131.51, the fuel tax, 98,055 from a CDBG grant, 200,000 mobility fee that's transferred from the solid waste fund. And that's what makes that up.
So it's the extra economic environment CDBG of 98,000 pushes it up 100.
Yeah.
What is that? It says per Steve for Ross Point
Yeah.
and school zone
It was
improvement.
for a grant.
It's the CDBG money that we are paving Ross Point, and we're doing some school improvements around the side, pedestrian. We just approved it. Didn't we just-
Right.
Center
Yeah,
Street and Fleming flashers and
Yeah.
street signs.
For schools.
So this is revenue transferred from
CDBG money.
CDBG. So it's just a transfer.
Typically, we would use CDBG money for lift stations. This year, we don't have a lift station in an eligible area, so we're moving the money over to Center Street for improvements and to Ross Point for paving that parking lot area.
And we approved that last meeting.
Okay.
Does that explain it, John?
Yeah, it does, I was just,
Okay.
So it's just a transfer.
it's more
not
than a
actually
fuel
going
tax,
up.
it's more than the fuel tax.
It's not actually going up.
So, take the little another way.
All right, so I don't know if you had if you had a chance to look at the actual revenues and expenditures. If not, we can just kind of give you a quick overview like Susan did the last time. But like I said, everything that we've put into this budget, like we've done in previous years, is to operate the business. There's some contingencies in each of the funds, not a whole heck of a lot, but there are some contingencies in there. But, you know, like I said, you know, each year when I talk to the department heads, and Antoine was one, I asked him if he can trim any more, and Steve, and they looked at me and said, it's what it costs. You know, if they're getting estimates for chemicals, it is what it is. We can't do that. We've negotiated and gotten the best estimates that we can.
And actually, the contingency, there is no contingency in the building fund. There is no contingency.
No, the building fund, we support the building.
Right, but there's just not an excess of revenue over projected expenditures right now.
And we barely have any capital projects. I mean, I say
Oh, no, no.
barely, but I just.
No newer.
New,
Right.
whereas each year we usually have a long
Yeah.
list of things that we have to do.
You'll see
so.
it's
And,
practically inexistent.
well, I'll let you do your presentation, and I have some questions as we go along.
Yeah, whenever I can help, or like I said, I think, and we'll talk about what you have in your, obviously you have the PowerPoint, and as Joe said, you have a snapshot, which, remember you had those longer reports that were maybe a little harder to follow, so I just tried to list things in the snapshot. First is the revenues, and then is the expenditures, and at the bottom of each fund, you'll see that the revenue will equal the expenditures. The last line of the revenue would be any fund balance that we would need to use to pay for the expenditures, and vice versa. If there's any excess revenue, we would list it at the bottom of this. So here in the general fund, right now, with not knowing what the insurance is, we have projected 166,000 of excess contingency in that fund, and of a $10 million fund, it's not a lot. Anyway, all of the spreadsheets that you have here for each of the funds, that really list the detail of what the revenue is. We'll go ahead with the PowerPoint. So this is a snapshot, like I said, of the reports that you have. The revenues are first, the expenditure at the bottom. Like I said, the highlights, the yellow highlights are non-confirmed numbers, and the greens are confirmed numbers from an outside source of revenue. So as we see in the snapshot, what really happens, salaries and benefits are increasing, same as a little more than what we had last year, about 10.4%, addressing again minimum wage increase. I did put in an increase expected of insurance costs of up to 10%. However, we're praying it's only that, but we really don't know what it will be. But obviously, the big elephant in the room is the fuel costs. And I did myself a little spreadsheet on the costs and how much they are. And right now, over last year, the fuel and oil supplies are approximately 73% over the budgeted amount from last year. So, insurance right now is actually flat. Office supplies about 20%, operating supplies about 13.5%, rentals and leases 35%, salaries and benefits, like I said, 10%, and training and education costs actually went up almost 25%. But that fluctuates from year to year.
Yeah. And those
We have
percentages are not off of
years.
an equal number. So
Right.
it may be 25% of training and education, but it's a low number to begin with. So don't think of it as a big.
Correct.
Yeah, specifically over the last couple of years, there's been no in-person trainings due to COVID.
Right. So we're starting to increase a lot of the training that we've missed out on.
So the insurance that we're talking about, is that the hazard insurance? I'm assuming salaries and benefits includes the health insurance.
Correct. That is right, the property and casualty insurance.
What do you know about that?
Pardon me?
What do you know about that?
Well, Brown and Brown, I turned the estimate in a week early, and we're hoping to hear back from them pretty quickly. But I can tell you that we said there was accurate information. As you see, the budget is actually slightly above last year, so I think that's a good thing, you know, is where we have, it's slightly above what we had for last year. And as you see, the trend was, through good forecasting, our expenditures were actually less than our revenues. This is our increase of fund balance this year, where we had a very small projection last year due to a lot of the capital projects that we had, and then obviously with our request this year, if everything maintains the same and the total of all the funds, we could have a slight surplus. That's that 166 that I talked about earlier. But that could go away with actual budget numbers.
But 2020 and 2021 is so high because we weren't able to, we put off a lot of those projects.
Yes,
right?
COVID,
Right.
right. For a number of different reasons, we put off some of that.
So here's the revenue in a nutshell.
That's just what's going in, it's not total. That's just what's gone in each year. Okay, correct.
Let me just also mention, last year you had the CARES Act money that
Right.
really
Right.
paid for fires, salaries, and benefits. So that created a surplus that rolled the fund balance for the normal budget.
And we had also FEMA reimbursements back in 2020 of $1.5 million. So there was a lot of things going on back then. So this is a snapshot of major categories of expenses. Like I said, the revenues slightly, they actually increased in total 608,000. Ad valorem, it said right now, we're looking at a 6.25 at the current rate. That's what this is based upon. These figures are based upon a millage of 6.25. Anybody have any questions? But what's good is we're not using any fund balance to fund the fund right now. So that's, I think, important. And it is $10 million, so it's a good chunk of change. The state share revenues, as you see, they went up slightly. But of course, you know, they didn't go up in proportion to the charges for services. But we can see all that. Any other questions? Is it in a pie chart? Because to show you, obviously, the taxes are the biggest part. Salaries, you know, and the revenue, the admin fees. It's small. 18%, it looks bigger than what it really is. Joe asked me to keep this table in, which kind of gives you a snapshot of what the effect of the millage is on taxable values.
So this is based on the 6.25
Yeah,
on the assessed values, the taxable values of a home. So you can see what the city portion of their tax bill would be. So that doesn't take into account homestead.
The one on the top does.
the one on the top.
Okay, there it is. I was
Yeah.
looking at the bottom
And
left.
the roof,
Okay.
yeah, I know it's kind of weird that the table should be, this should be down.
Okay.
Here's our general fund expenditures by category. Was it last year IT and fleet were outside, and this year they've moved back in? So obviously, the revenue funds the departments fully. Any questions on any area? Again, this is by the pie chart. Obviously, our police and fire are the largest pieces of it.
This part shows how much we support our police department.
That's right.
Throw that out there.
Obviously, here's the actual 21, the budget 22, and the proposed 23 in those areas of service. It's interesting how, the other areas kind of went down, like in the non-departmental, it actually went down, versus everything else pretty much aboard either stayed the same or slightly increased over last
I
year's
remember
budget.
in law enforcement, we hired 2 additional officers. We have the VOCA position that's in there that is not a general fund expense, but it gets filtered through, so that'll show up in there.
What's an example of non-departmental expense?
So those are it's the 810, I think of it that way, but it's kind of like the transfers that come in and out between the funds. So that's where the general fund is supporting the other
Okay.
funds.
Gotcha.
There may be a few capital expenditures.
Yeah, not in unfortunately this year, but you see it was higher last year because we had more capital expenditures. This is that fuel tax that we're talking about, the 429, so we know what the detail of that is. This is our building and permitting fund. Our revenue is actually pretty much just slightly increased. We do have some additional fees. We started that fire inspection fee that we didn't previously have, so we're really not sure what that's going to.
It's going to be kind of nominal.
Yeah, it's very nominal. Right now, it's only 60,000 or 58,000 over last year. Again, the impact fee, there's no budget for the impact fee this year for the police department. 47,000 from last year funded the police cars for the 2 police officers. And this is our Police Explorers Fund. So the revenue, this is that license plate reader agreement. That's the lease for the 15,009 is the license plate readers.
Who's Jeff?
I didn't see. Are they up and running?
Final phase of installation,
Great.
scheduled hopefully by the end of the month.
License plate readers.
So here's the CRA. Again, the ad valorem is based upon that millage. And it's actually very much in line with last year.
Now, with the CRA fund, did you include the consultant in this chart?
Yes, I want to say it.
So what I'm talking about is, depending upon what happens with the county council and the motivation to extend timeframes for the CRA, we're going to need to update our CRA master plan. So we've got a rough estimate of about,
I didn't have him, I had the lobbyist, and the lobbyist is there, but I had the promotion, Mr.
Okay.
Hamilton.
so.
But the other one is not in
All
there.
right, so we need to add about $70,000 into this fund to pay for a consultant to update the CRA master plan. so that we're prepared in 2023 potentially to go back to the county council at the end of 23 or 24 to petition for an extension to the CRA.
And that was 75, I remember.
75. I think it was 70. I told them to put in 75.
Okay.
In addition to that, in this fund, I'm going to also add 75,000 in expenditures for equipment over at, I don't want to say Daytona, over at the performance area. So we have to purchase a stage, we have to purchase folding chairs, a podium, a couple other miscellaneous items. The stage, we're going to split the cost with Daytona, but the other items will primarily be used for us for our performances. So I'm anticipating about $50,000 to $75,000 in upfront costs for that. And then we're still working with Reiner and Rick and Deb over there on figuring out how we're going to actually make these performances work. There's a lot of details that are going into this, everything from parking attendants to ticket takers to concessionaires to setup, breakdown, cleanup. So Rick's estimating that it's going to be a pretty close to a break-even scenario for some of these events. I fully expect that some of these events will be at a loss. I would expect that in the first year or two, just like any other business, you tend to run in a loss for the first year or two. So we're hoping that it's going to build a good reputation and it will be operating in the black and being successful very early on. So just know that there'll be another $150,000 increase.
It is the 75,000 for the CRA plan update is
Right.
in here. I did check that.
Okay, all right, so we just need to add it into
It's just the equipment that's not in.
All right,
But the 75 for the CRA plan update is in there. Okay.
So-
I put a note.
they're going to just, for your purposes, they're going to be ordering this stuff now, and we'll reimburse them for it after October. But if we don't put the order in now, we won't get it when we need it. So,
For March charities. Okay. I'll put that on.
So which line does that 75 grand come off of?
So I'll add the Pictona under that 168. I'll add those extra 75 to reimburse them. But it'll actually become our asset, so.
now the money, there's a balance of about $1 million that will allocate to the underground project.
Right.
Any questions on that?
So the 75 comes out of the non-departmental,
It comes out of the.
So, right, you are correct.
it has to add to Pictona, it has to come out of somewhere.
So the 75,000 for the CRA plan is in the non-departmental, and the other 75,000 for the equipment, the expense will actually, because we're reimbursing Pictona, but when we actually book it, it'll be an asset to us. It's listed as expense, but then it'll be moved to an asset.
Okay.
Where are we gonna keep all the stuff?
They'll start over there.
Why can't we split some of the stuff with them like we're splitting the stage?
They don't need it. So, for example, the folding chairs will be used to set up when the pickle court, when the championship court is broken down and the court's not there, we need to put out this, like a carpeting to protect the surface of the court, and then we'll set folding chairs up where people will be facing the stage as opposed to just sitting in the bleachers. So there'll be about 360 folding chairs. We will use that. They'll never have a need for the folding chairs because the court will be there and people will be sitting in the stands. So
Where's all the, I mean, other than chairs, what kind of expenses are there for?
So you've got about $32,000 that we're going to split for the stage. Then there is about $1,800 for higher quality chairs that'll go onto the stage for certain activities that we may do up there, where you're going to have dignitaries sitting up there for one reason or another. We have to buy skirting and to go around the stage, and the equipment to wheel the stage in and out.
I mean, we'll have a high school graduation, you never know.
Very much so.
You know?
That's exactly what we're
Yeah.
talking about. Then the folding chairs, you know, we can go with these really cheap $16 chairs, or we can go with chairs that are gonna cost about $45. No, we're gonna get the $45 chairs because the $16 chairs, after one concert, you're gonna replace half of them. So that's gonna run about $20,000 for those chairs. Then we need a podium, which will be about $1,500. And then the carpeting that goes over the court itself. So, I mean, we're getting into the entertainment business, so to speak. So we gotta do it.
We're gonna put our logo on the podium or Pictona's?
Didn't even think about it a little bit yet.
Do our seal.
I'm sure, if nothing else, at a bare minimum, it would be both, but our seal will absolutely be on there and it'll be on the top.
If not, they can pay for it.
It'll be, they may not have a need for the podium. The podium is really gonna be for our purpose, like say we do a graduation. But we will more than likely probably get seals that would switch out. If it's a Pictona event, they put their seal on it, if it's our event.
Get an echo seal in case they show up.
And what?
An echo seal in case they show up.
And we put it
I
out.
like that.
I don't know if we'll ever get another echo can. Doesn't mean I won't try.
So obviously, there's nothing funded currently for Fountainhead. Capital projects for the CRA, they are not funded out of the current year. It could be rollover from prior year. That will be done after the start of the year. Here's the very small amount of the capital projects, which are primarily, I think the police vehicles, I want to say, right, Michelle? Yeah, so what it is the police vehicles and a mule. This is what was in 2022 and that little 254, what was in 2023, and you'll see that's broken out into some, I should go back,
I do
sorry.
have a question there.
Sorry, let me go back.
I have a quick question, and the chief may have to answer this. What is the difference between police vehicles and police Ford Explorer? Are they not all, where are you at? Oh, there you are. Are they not all Explorers? What,
Where do you see?
Left side.
police vehicles 3,
Oh, that was last year.
and then police Ford Explorer.
Well, we bought some staff cars.
Okay, so you mean like the truck, and so those could be different type vehicles?
Right, like we bought Ford Fusions. We didn't buy Fusions last year, though.
No, I don't. This, okay,
That was
are you
last-
telling me this was last
Yeah.
year? and
This
has
is
not-
last year.
Okay.
This is last year, that is this year.
I think I asked the same question last year.
Get the same answer.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Probably got the same
just get it
answer.
in it.
Okay. And so is the traffic vehicle a motorcycle?
No.
No, we're out of the motorcycle business.
Okay. Okay.
It's for the second traffic position.
Okay. Got you. All right, that's the only question I had.
Well, right now, this is where we're at. Today, obviously, we're having our meeting to adopt the maximum millage. And we have to have 2 public hearings to adopt the final, or the tentative and the final. First hearing is on September 12th, that's a Monday. And the second is September 27th, which is the final public hearing at 6 p.m. Just remember that meeting on the 12th is the Monday.
So I'm passing around another document that Susan produced, and this is showing you what the revenue is at 6.25 mils, and then 6.1, 6.0, 5.95, and the rollback rate. And really what I want you to take a look at is the last 2 lines, which is a contingency and what percentage of the budget that contingency represents. So at the rollback rate, you're looking at $166,000 in contingency at 1.62% of the budget, if we go with the 6.25 mils. And we're recommending to do that at this point because of the unknown with what expenditures may be next year. Now, if you choose to direct us to go with a lower millage rate, we still stay in balance up until the rollback rate. We're in balance up to 5.95 mils, where there's only $2,700 in contingency funds at 0.03% of the budget. But we run a greater risk that if we do find ourselves going over projected budget for whatever reasons may come up next year, we'll end up having to come back to the commission, not just for a budget amendment, but for having to dip into the reserves in order to fund it. And we try not to have to dip into reserves to balance an operational budget. Reserves should be used for capital one-time expenditures, which that may be the case. We don't know what happens in the next year. So that's why we're recommending to the current rate of 6.25 mils.
And also remember what you said tonight, you can go down in
It's
the
the
next two
maximum. Right.
hearings. This is the maximum tonight. You can't go up from what you said tonight.
Right. And, you know, just to throw out too, I know there's several cities that haven't voted yet, but are looking at going above their current rate. I know that New Smyrna is going 0.222 mils above. And all of us are having all the same things that we've talked about now for about a year. We're competing with the private sector with jobs and wages, as we know, and this commission last year decided to raise the wages, and especially all across the board, just to even compete. And unfortunately, those wages keep going up and up and up. And then, of course, compounded on top of that, we obviously have the out of control interest on everything. So everyone is feeling that crunch. The only city that I've heard of that's going under their current rate but above rollback is Ormond. I don't think I've heard of any other city looking at.
Tomorrow's a manager's meeting that I'm not going to go to for obvious reasons, where they'll probably discuss what their proposed rates are going to be. So I will get a list of that though.
Okay. But I wanted to point that out, that private businesses are feeling this crunch just as local governments are as well. And I just want to say, from a budget standpoint, thank you to all of our directors this year for understanding that maybe you didn't get all of your wants. I hope that you're getting all of your needs, and there's a level of service that we just have to keep up here, because if we were to cut certain things, we wouldn't be able to actually operate the city the way that I think the citizens demand. And to put an emphasis on that, one thing I wanted to talk to the commission about tonight is our police department. And I know some of you don't look at Facebook whatsoever, and I wish I was you, because my blood pressure would be a lot lower, I think. But there are many people out there, and you probably know this as well if you're not looking at Facebook, is the vast majority of people want to support public safety and in specific our police department. And that is what this commission has done. And I know I don't need to continue saying that. We all know that here. We know that what we have done. And we sharpened our pencils to make sure that we're paying them more of what they deserve as well. So, and looking at the budget, one thing that I find interesting is 86.2% of our ad valorem tax that we take in funds the police department. 86%, $2.9 million. So 86% of every dollar we take in for property taxes is going to pay for our police department. If you add fire in there, that's another $1.7 million. It's 138% of our ad valorem. So every single dollar we bring in from property taxes pays for our public service. What's interesting is, so Joe and I have talked a lot about this. Ormond Beach does something that I think is very transparent and easy for the citizens to understand. When you look at the breakdown of what is going to happen to my tax bill, it's going to go up, if we stay at the current rate, it would go up $8 a month or somewhere in that range, maybe $6 to $8 a month. If we were able to break out what is actually being paid for, I think people would understand it more, because when you see a tax increase, it's, oh no, a tax increase, but I don't see the level of service increasing. Why am I paying this? And they don't get into the numbers. So one thing that Ormond does in specific is they have a dedicated millage that's broke out when they go through the budget process to talk about specifically public safety. and more specifically, police equipment. And so if we look at our capital projects of this year, we're looking at, I think it's about $150,000 of police equipment that we're buying in our capital. So using rough numbers, that's about $250,000. I think before budget session started and I was talking to Mr. Forte, my goal and his goal along with that was to get us under 6 mils, 5.95. But if we look at what that gets us to here with a contingency of $2,000 and a budget that's $10.4 million overall, really, I think, puts us financially at risk
If they're responsible.
in such an uncertain time with inflation. We don't know what is going to happen over this next year. And so, and then as we saw wages and what they cost and all of the benefits that go along with it, and just normal things that you have to buy from chemicals and all of that going up, gas going up 70%, it's almost unfathomable to be able to go down without cutting something very, very severe. And so one thing though that I really like that Orman does, and I'd like to direct staff when they bring us back the breakdown of the millage, is to break out police equipment. What that would mean is we would have a so-called dedicated mill, not a mill, a full mill. It would be probably $250,000 for police equipment that we would break out every year, because we have to buy police equipment. We have to do that. And I think it's more transparent. I think that the citizens will be able to see it. We can point to it and say, we have to fund this because we've made a commitment to our cops here that they're going to have the best equipment. And so I would like, if we could, it doesn't do anything to the bottom line. It doesn't, and it's not a breakout like the county does completely, where it's a whole separate mill like they do with the fire and
That's MSTU.
other.
Separate everything.
That's completely different. But internally, for our policy, to be able to break it out and say, this is what we're paying for that. We could do it for other things. Orman has a couple other categories that they do that too as well. But watching their commission workshops, they explain it, and it is so easy to see. And I think that the citizens, I think they need to see that, because the citizens don't realize, for the vast majority of them, I don't think, and when I first started looking at the budget, that out of a $10.4 million budget, we're only bringing in $3 million in ad valorem. And out of that $3 million, our police department alone costs $3 million. So I think it's more transparent. I think it would be a good route to go down if we could give direction to staff to look more into how Orman does that and bring it back to us whenever we're voting on the mill. Yep.
Are you talking about, I hate to use the term bait and switch, but something where both of them are, or whatever you're talking about, all adds up to the same
It would
bottom?
add up.
Just pulling some out to make it look, or not make it look, to show them what's going for?
Right, right.
But I agree with your thought process, but I like the pie chart better. If we're looking at 6.25 mils, that's gonna be all the money we can collect that we have control over. And if 86% of our costs are police, that means the police millage rate, I know that's not what you're talking about, but the police millage rate is 5.375.
That's right.
And then you add the fire millage rate to that,
And it's above 6.
we're underwater.
Right.
I don't think it's as impactful. I agree with your theory, but if we just show police capital stuff $160,000, and that's 0.002 of a mils, and you're collecting 6.25 mils, I think it's transparent, but I don't think it's impactful, because I think you're diluting what we're actually putting towards public safety.
Mhm.
I just.
We could have it broken out and show that
If
5.8.
if you put everything that we spend and try to put the mills, and so if the only thing we collected was ad valorem taxes, the rate would have to be 22.
I just want to be careful with that, theory, because while it makes sense, that's not what we're doing. We don't put 87% of our millage to the police department.
No, I understand, but
It goes into a pot and we put 28% of all revenues into the police
no,
department.
I get it, but the only thing we have control over
Is the millage.
is the millage rate. And the only,
I don't want somebody to pin you down and say, well, you told me 86% of the millage is going to the police department.
no, and that's, if we look at the cost, the expenses and the revenues, just like we just did, we have a $10 million revenue.
Call it
and
an equivalent.
And $3 million is for the police department.
It's equivalent to that percentage
Right.
of it, but it's not.
But I think it'd be more impactful, this pie chart, that shows it all. I mean, 28%, and it doesn't matter what the budget is, whether it's 100 million or 10 million or 2 million. 28% of the city of Holly Hills money goes to police. 17, half of our budget goes to public safety.
Yeah.
That's a statement. That's a statement.
Yeah. Fire and.
And for the most part, it's been that way historically.
No, it's always been that way, and I picked up on it when I heard Rob Littleton say it the other day. He said exactly what you're talking
I've
about.
been saying this for years, and you just hear from Littleton?
No, but
It's that pandemic.
I don't. I agree with the theory, but I just don't want to undershow what we actually are spending, because someone might spend it the other way and go, "Oh, you're only spending $156,000," and
Well, we could differ from Orman and not do police equipment, but we could do wages, which would be substantial, and it would show where that is. I think that today, look, we have, honestly, this commission, and I don't know if you're reading it or not, but people are under the false assumption that we have not funded our police department. That is being said. It is also being said that we don't pay our officers enough, which in some ways we can all agree with that.
But are you
They deserve
listening to
be
12
paid.
people on Facebook?
No. I'm talking. There's, John. There's
I don't watch it, so.
hundreds of comments.
Yeah.
I'm serious,
Yeah.
but it's a common refrain, and it's not based in facts, right? They didn't look at our budget. They are saying what they're hearing in the media from other places, that we are not funding our police department. And I know, and you know, and I think our staff knows, that couldn't be further from reality. I think that this commission, more than any other commission, we are here to back our law enforcement, because if we don't have that, we don't have civilization, period. So they are saying that, and they're saying that we're not funding these cops. They're saying that, they said we don't have enough cops. You know, Joe and I just had a meeting yesterday with the chief of police and talk about another lie that went out about having only 2 people on, and there was 4 people on during that shift. On Facebook, you can say whatever you want. Unfortunately, it snowballs, and it becomes reality. People start thinking, well, my city doesn't fund police the way that I think that they should. And so I just thought if we could say, look, we have a dedicated part of our millage to our police department to show what it is, and maybe it's a salary, because it would show a lot more than 150,000. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, if I may, I haven't really received any complaints about the budget at all, actually, but that they didn't understand parts or what have you. And if those people, and I've seen some of what you're talking about, if those people obviously haven't taken the time to educate themselves on the facts, I don't think a means by which we track things is going to make them look at it any differently. They're just going to spew what they spew without fact checking and making sure. And that's just, unfortunately, is the way society is heading these days. But so
I just think it makes a statement that, I think it makes a statement when Orman says it, and when they go through their process and they break it out. And you heard it, we were at the same function where Rob Littleton spoke, and he spoke about it. And I think it's impactful. I think that, you know, going out and when you give a speech and you're able to say that we do that, and we make sure that that's, you don't want to get into the nitty gritty of how many dollars are spent this and that. It's a matter, it's to me, it's just a statement, and I would like staff to look into it, and I was hoping there, you know.
I'm not opposed to it. I can't do the math in my head fast enough, so maybe one of these ladies behind me can, but how many mills is $150,000? It's like
.25, it's about a quarter.
Probably .220.
Yeah, it's not too
Right about there.
But I
So,
think he's
so
trying
to
to
say
think, that
you're
way.
doing .20 towards police, because you could say towards police equipment, you could say towards police badges, you could say, they're gonna see police.
Yeah.
And they're gonna see that your millage rate is 6.25 and you're only spending .2 on cops.
Yeah.
What, shame on you, you should spend half of it on cops.
Good point. Maybe we could have staff.
That's my concern.
Maybe staff
That is very
could give
true.
us a couple of different options of how to.
I mean,
make
I'm
that.
not
Maybe
opposed to
it's
breaking
just
it out,
equipment.
but I just,
Right, and Orman's is .11, I believe it is, for police equipment. And then I think they have a fire one.
but the only thing we were buying is a mule, you know, and it's like, so.
And
But I think
police-
she's-
and 3
I know,
police
but-
cars.
but-
Yeah.
I think she's ready to, not to say the mentality of, but are they gonna look at the, like he's saying, the numbers, or are they gonna look at that picture and go, wow, that's more than I thought?
Yeah, I
The
think
picture
they,
says 1,000 words, that might.
and I think they could accompany each other.
Yeah.
But maybe if staff could look into it more, if
I'm not
nobody.
opposed to looking at options.
Yeah.
I don't shoot you down.
I'm certainly
just-
not opposed to it.
Okay, cool.
But,
Good.
It's not
I
gonna,
mean-
it's not gonna affect the decision of the maximum millage tonight.
No, it's just how is it
Right,
reported?
no,
It's just
right,
policy.
exactly.
That's what I want to ask.
I'd be
And-
willing to look at it.
Here's how I look at it, it doesn't cause any harm to do it. So,
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for that. And moving quickly on from that, we have about 13 minutes left, and I want to allow anybody else to speak. But one question I do have with our capital is, are we not this year putting anything into our fire truck reserve? Are
Oh,
we-
yeah, so that was previously funded in the prior year. So every November, we come to commission with all of the prior year budget that needs to be now shifted forward to the next year. So
Okay,
remember, the budget we talk about now is the new revenue, you know, not the budget that was committed but not spent in prior years.
right, right.
And so that will come from the carry forward budget resolution that will come around the end, the middle.
but is that fully funded in the carry forward?
The carry forward, that's all capital projects that are currently in play from the budget that hasn't been spent from the prior
We had only
years.
been partially funding that, so we built up the
Right, so,
funds.
correct, so as far as the cash or as far as the budget?
As far as the bill's gonna come in February, I wanna make sure we can pay it.
Yes.
Okay, so it's
Yes.
funded.
So we're-
That is
Good.
funded, yes.
Good, good.
Would it be better to take all those expenses, so we're talking about a fire station in the future, we're talking about a fire truck, we're talking about police cars. If you took all that capital, and whether it's rollover budget or current budget, and put a dollar amount to that, and equate that to millage, is that fair to say? Because that's gonna be a bigger number.
That's risky,
Yeah.
because not all of that revenue, like we may get, you know, we may get very lucky this year if our lobbyists can pull off this grant for the fire station. And so that then gets shown as a revenue. So I want to be careful, you know, budgeting is, you know, they know I hate finance. It's a skill, and you have to then allocate when you get a grant, whether it's a FEMA grant or a lobby, you know, allocation grant, that shows as a revenue, and I don't want the public thinking that that revenue, although it is some form of taxpayer money,
Yeah.
I don't want them to think it's a local money that they're paying into ad valorem. So we got to be very careful how we position that.
We need to be careful with, when you have a policy, you're then restricting that revenue to only that source.
Which is why the little number
So-
is secure. We know we can do that little number and say, all right, you know, .20 mils is going to be used to purchase police vehicles every year.
We know that we have a capital plan, that we have to replace vehicles, a minimum of 3 a year. We know it's in there, it's part of the long-term capital plan, so it is. But then again, just in case something happens and you need that for something else, you can't use it for something else.
That year, you could change it over.
Yeah, that could always change the
Yeah,
next
well, I'm
year,
just
yeah.
saying, you're restricting
Now
yourself.
you change it, so the next year you'll lower it. What
Right.
does that do to your reputation?
Yeah.
That's why I never did anything different.
We can
So-
put
Maybe
together
because Orman's got a
small
bigger
Yeah,
grants.
thank you.
number.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We got 9 minutes left. Any other comments on this? And we're gonna be voting tonight on the maximum mill, and as Mrs. Gurney said, is the max, so it can't go up from there, but it can go down if staff is able to find some miracles in the budget.
Bake sales.
Yeah.
Yeah, but by all means, let me know if you're not satisfied with the max, if you want to drive toward another number. Like I said, we can balance the budget up to 0.49 mils, we just don't have much contingency.
I don't think it's prudent at this state to lower your options. There's still some unknowns. We don't know what some of these expenses are. There were some green and yellow and blue things up there.
Well,
I'm not sure
the
which
bigger-
are.
One of the bigger concerns is the insurance premiums.
Yeah,
You
it's a
know,
big one.
All I can tell you is that on the residential homeowners insurance side,
40%.
Oh my
average of 40%. Average of 40%.
I'll save some
Have you gotten your
electricity,
homeowner's
turn the air
policy
on.
yet? It's 40%.
Well, remember, workers' comp is based upon
It's probably
summer.
save some
So
electricity
you know
to
it's
turn the
going.
air open.
And you know things are
Freezing,
It is freezing, in
right?
there.
There's a couple bucks
Lower it
in.
now,
Turn up
lower it now, you're not
68.
gonna-
Lower now, you can't make it up,
You're
so.
not gonna raise it, you're gonna lower it. You can raise it and then lower it later.
Right.
Well, you can't raise it, right.
But on the thing you're talking about showing each thing in departments of how much it costs for this, that, and taxes off, looking at things from a business people's point of view from Holly Hill, which I've been for like 50 years, and I've talked to a lot of business people, you are. And they don't really care about how you spend your money internally, they care about how they spend their money internally. They care about what you're going to charge them for taxes, for the rate of taxes. See, like my property, I pay a lot of money on my property, it's almost in Ormond. If it was in Ormond, I'd pay a lot less tax rate, but most likely the value would increase enough to make the difference. It wouldn't really make that much difference, so you have to look at it from more than one point of view, but I don't think people really care. Some people, maybe a very few, would care about how much millage rate would go to the fire department, the police department, or something like that. Most of them will just look.
Care about how much are they gonna pay?
How much am I gonna pay compared to that? I mean, the first thing we look at that high thing, well, golly, we're paying the police department more than a fourth of the total amount of everybody in the city. That's the way they would look at it, like that.
I'd like to hear the comments then.
Just from an outside point of view,
Yeah.
that's the way I would think it would be. They're gonna look at it like that, why would it cost so much?
So.
More for the police and everything else.
And so tonight, as we set this, we'll all be able to discuss the maximum millage rate. And does anybody else have any questions or comments about the budget? Nope.
Nope.
Is there anything else we need to discuss? Nope. All right. If there's nothing further, seeing nothing, no more business, this meeting.
Where Dallas used to live.
Yep, same neighborhood.
Yeah.
We're good. We're ready.
All right, everybody. We're going to go ahead and call this workshop to order. This is the workshop of July 26, 2022. This is to discuss WastePro, the CPI rate adjustment discussion. So I'm going to first throw it over to Mr. Forte. Do you have anything before you hand it over?
I wasn't paying attention quick enough. I wanted to actually read the paragraph out of the contract.
You need to call a roll?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
I do.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
While you figure that out, let us call the roll very quickly.
Ken might have it.
Val, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Penny?
Here.
Commissioner Curry? Commissioner Danio?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Mayor Villa?
Here. All right, thank you, Mrs. Manning. And Ms. Forte, did you pull that up?
Give me a
Yep.
a minute or two, and I'll be able to get it up here.
Yes, sir.
Is that it? Yeah. Okay. So in the contract we have with WastePro that we signed in 5 years ago, we still have another 5 years remaining. It expires in 2017. There are clauses in there that.
2027.
What did I say?
17.
That's when we signed it originally, 27. There are clauses in there that allow for certain increases. As you know, the CPI is one, and the other is the fuel cost adjustment.
There's also a paragraph E, it says unusual changes or cost, and it says either party may petition the other on the anniversary date of the contract for rate adjustments at reasonable times on the basis of unusual changes in the contractor's cost of doing business, such as revised laws, ordinances, or regulations, or changes in the location of disposal sites. No such change will be approved except through formal amendment of this contract. So it's that paragraph that WastePro has approached the city with requesting a rate adjustment. In addition to the CPI and the fuel cost. So Ken had contacted Antoine, and they had been talking about this for the past several weeks, and then the staff and I met with Ken recently over the other increases just to make sure we were all understanding everything, and we talked a little bit about this rate adjustment, and Ken requested an opportunity to make a presentation to the commission, so that's why we're here this evening.
All right. Thank you.
Turn it over to Ken.
Thank you, Mr. Forte, and now the floor is yours, Mr. DeForest.
All right, well, thank you very much. Ken DeForest, I'm the division manager or garbage man for WastePro in Volusia County. As I think you know, we service 12 municipalities, and we're not picking on Holly Hill. We've approached all our municipalities. And the reason I'm here tonight is to ask for some help. As the mayor said at the beginning of the commission meeting, we're all facing difficult times. It's difficult to operate a city or operate a business now. Our costs have gone up significantly, much more than the CPI will compensate us for. So what we're asking our cities to do is to allow us to do a rate adjustment, and it's really for this year, in addition to a CPI for next year, because we've had huge impacts from the middle of last year through now, and they're going to continue through October. So the rate adjustment is really to get us back to a reasonable margin. We need to be able to make money. We're a for-profit business, and if we don't make money, then we can't provide the services that we need to provide for the city. Our margins have been going down year after year after year the last 3 years. So now we're at a trajectory that we're not going to be making money, we're going to be losing money. So they've gone in 2019, and this is round numbers, about 14% net profit, which is not a big margin for what we do, but we do a lot. We do 450,000 services every week. But it went to 11% the next year. In 20, we went to 7.5%. This year, in 21, it went to 7.5%. This year, we're at 3.5%. We're going ticking down, down, down. And I want to go through some of the impacts that are pushing us in that direction. So what we've done is calculated what the impact is to our operations. Now, this is for the entire division. We run, on average, 99 routes a day, Monday through Friday. And then Saturday about 20, 25. Sunday we run 4 routes. But on average, 99 routes a day. Our expenses are up $6.2 million year over year. It's mainly in labor and mainly in fuel, but everything we do is costing us more money. Vehicle expenses up $63,000. Fuel, oil, fluids up $1.4 million. Labor up $4.4 million a year. That's the annual impact. Insurance is up $230,000. Overhead up $94,000. The overhead cost is mainly associated with the cost of trying to keep employees, or hire new employees, train new employees. So what we did was divide that down to make it reasonable, because we have to, it affects a rate. If I'm asking for something, it's going to affect your rate. So the cost per route is $62,000. I've put up there without fuel because we had discussions back and forth, and with the fuel component in your rate, I've taken fuel out with the hopes that we gain back. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about fuel as we go further.
Hey, Ken, will you entertain questions as you present?
Absolutely, yeah. Stop me if you want.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask you on that with regard to the cost per route. That's an average cost per route because all routes are not considered equal, correct?
That's correct. So it is an average. If we had to do a deep dive, we could certainly do that and just specifically look at Holly Hill. For instance, the fuel component for the 5.4 routes in Holly Hill on average is about $76,000. The actual fuel every month since we set fuel April of last year, and we're getting paid $1.06 or something per house for fuel, is $87,000. So if we had gotten paid actual fuel every month, we would have gotten $87,000. The shared cost comes out to $76,000. So, you know, something might be higher, something might be lower, but it is an average cost. Okay. Inflation, I just grabbed this one today. Every month, every time it comes out, it seems to be a new record. You know, the last one was 9.1%. It was a week and a half ago. Another, you know, highest in 40 years. So when we're asking for unusual cost of doing business, it's not that, you know, inflation's got 3%. We've never seen anything like this before. I've been in this business for going on 43 years now. I've never seen increases like this. And you can see that it doesn't seem to be going down or even flattening out, and it's much higher than what the CPIs we may be getting or have seen in the past. So what are some of the drivers for us? Well, you know, it's a big economy, but here are some of the things that have driven our prices up. You go back 2 years ago, the pandemic hit, the rescue plan came out, $1.9 trillion was pumped into the economy. It's overheated the economy. It's driven all our costs up. Some of the benefits that people had to protect their wages have caused them to stay at home. They don't want to come to work. They don't want to work as long as we require them to work. We've had
How much money did your company receive?
Zero.
Zero.
From the government? Zero. None. And this could be a longer year for a long, but I just mentioned Keystone Pipeline. The Interior Department stopped leasing in Anwar, which is the North Slope of Alaska, which they had just opened up a few years ago. Changed regulations restricting offshore gas. Lots of travel, workplace regulations that affected us. They affected the whole supply chain. All those things have driven inflation up. So here's some examples from our division in Daytona. Tires are up 19%. A transmission rebuild is 23%. Hydraulic cylinders, our trucks don't pick up any garbage if the hydraulics don't work, 32%. Outside shop, 19%. We've had to increase our inventory. We are now keeping a minimum, and this is based on our vendors coming to us and saying, you better buy a whole bunch of brake shoes, drums, wheels. Right at the moment, we're having problems getting DEF fluid, which is the fluid for the diesel trucks that cleans the exhaust on them, and they're telling us we may not be able to get it. So we're buying large quantities of them. I'm having to rent trailers to store them in. Our fuel, oil, and fluids, our diesel is up, I think the mayor mentioned 75%. I calculate 85%. Our CNG, which historically is compressed natural gas, half our fleet works off gas trucks. Historically, that was cheaper, but that's gone up 300%. We also lost a federal tax credit for operating clean, energy efficient, clean burning trucks of $369,000. In January, we lost that. Last year we had $369,000. Hydraulic and motor oil is up $60,000. Labor, which is the #1 driver of our increased costs, up 38%. Insurance up 17%. Overhead I had mentioned about training. So the diesel costs, and when I talked about the fuel component of our rate, it was set back in April of 21 at $3 a gallon, $2.99. You know what has happened to fuel since then. And every month after October, when the rate kicked in, October of 21, fuel has been higher than we've been actually compensated for in that component. Up to $5.54 in June, It looks like it's leveled out a little bit. I think it may have ticked down a little bit, but we're still close to double of what the fuel is that we're being paid for now.
But isn't there two things in the contract? A fuel adjustment, which would address that, and a CPI, which would address the other things, and we're talking about an additional rate increase on top of both of those items. Is that correct?
That's correct, and that's what I mentioned. The rate adjustment, the base rate adjustment we're asking for, I've taken fuel out of that. But
Right, but we're talking about fuel. Why are we even talking about fuel if we're not talking about fuel?
well, the reason for it is because it's driving a lot of your costs. You're going to see the normal rate increase, I think, is about 68%. So it's affecting your residents. I just pointed out that it's affecting our operations. This year, we're about $87,000 behind in fuel.
I get it.
I don't know if I'm going
But
to get that made back up.
Maybe I'm not understanding the topic, but I thought there is a fuel adjustment, and we've already agreed to that. That fuel adjustment is in the contract, and we're going to pay that fuel adjustment. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I think, Commissioner, what he's referring to is because of the cost of fuel, it's raising the cost of these other products that they deal with. So you're looking at fuel as an expense for what's getting put into a truck, but you're also looking at fuel costs because that is also then raising the cost of his brake pads and the cost of his drive lines and all the other stuff. So it's a compounding effect. I think, is that what you're kind of referring to?
Well, it is, and also for a whole year now, last year's fuel adjustment has not compensated us for the cost of fuel.
Right, but as I understand it, the contract is set, the price is set, and let's say fuel goes to $10 a gallon, you're going to lose money for the next 12 months until the contract renews, then you're going to catch up, then it's going to go up, then it's going to go down. It's always, you're paying it forward. We always, the CPI and the fuel adjustment is to catch you up, to make you whole to what those fuel costs you've experienced over the past 12 months.
Right, and that's why I've taken it out of the base rate adjustment. I just, for illustrative purposes, it's affecting our business. I just wanted to show you.
No, I get it.
Part of the inflation.
I get it. It's a good sales pitch.
The next one is labor costs. Labor is through the roof. We've made 3 major unscheduled pay raises in the last year. The last one was on June 13th, about $48,000 a week for our drivers and helpers. And what has happened is we've seen an increased turnover at our business. So you have local companies like U.S. Food, some concrete companies, Amazon. They know, and they've been recruiting our people, and we were not paying the kind of dollars that they've been offering. So in order to have people that we can pick up your garbage and pick up your recycling, we've had to raise our rates. And we've raised our rates again, and it's what's driving, a $4.4 million annual increase in our costs. So just, you see, you can read them up there, but CDL drivers are in Orange City, they're advertising $103,000. I hear Walmart every morning talking about a brand new driver, first year, $110,000. That's what we're fighting. U.S. Foods, I've lost about 8 drivers to U.S. Foods. They hire the guys after a month. They go to $27 an hour. They let them work 14 hours a day, 5 days a week. We can't keep up, and I can't keep having turnover. So we've already made the commitment again to raise our rates, and we're hoping that we can keep them. And it affects everybody. Our mechanics, UPS in Orlando has grabbed 4 of my mechanics, offering them $35 an hour, and they pay for all their benefits. Buc-ee's up the street, $17 to say welcome to Buc-ee's, and our helpers aren't making that much. So if you go to the next one, I'm going to show you. This is our actual average wages for the whole division last year to this year. So these increases include the changes we've made mid-June. So driver went from 16 to 23, Residential helper went from $14 to $17, almost $18. The cherry picker, that's the grapple truck that we run in town 2, 3, 4 days a week, from 18 to 26. Roll-off driver, we have the roll-off exclusive franchise here, which we appreciate. Those drivers went from 18 to 27. Our technicians, we've gone to a new pay rate, so our technician A is the master mechanic that can do anything. They've gone to 37.47 is our average. The B and the C, important guys. The C does minor work, and some of the PMs. The B tech does a lot of what the A techs, they're up 21, 30, 56% for the technicians. So that's what the labor costs are driving for us. So if you go to the next one here, this is the increases. On the far right-hand side is what the contract will give us already, which is the CPI and the fuel. The unusual cost is what I'm asking for. The unusual cost for a residential home per month, we're asking for $1.56. That's 9 cents per pickup. We come by at least 4 times a week, 52 weeks a year, 4.33 weeks a year, 9 cents. It's not a lot of money. It's a lot of money when you add up all the pieces. It's 4,000 pickups a week, or 8,000 pickups a week. We do it twice, plus the recycling. So, it adds up, but it would make a big difference for us. The commercial dumpsters, I put in the average dumpster. All the rates would go up somewhat, and this request is about 12%. The average dumpster is about a 4-yarder twice a week. That would go up $21 a month, or $2.44 a pickup. The commercial toter, these are the businesses who have a toter like a home does. Their cost would go up $3.41. We're asking for $3.41 in addition to the other CPI increases, or 39 cents a pickup, and then the roll-off up $27 and change. If you look at the last column, if you just go back to that for a second, is what the total increase would be for residential. It'd be $328. A dumpster would be up $40. Commercial toter up $587, and a roll up $45.77. And if you could flip down, I think 2. I had a couple of things here. I just wanted to let you know we're not alone in the world. So the most recent bid that went out, an RFP actually, was in Palm Coast. Their prices, these are the prices. We were actually low bid to start with after negotiating and through a ranking process. FCC lowered their rate to 32 and were awarded the contract up there. But similar service, twice a week garbage, once a week recycle, once a week yard waste, 7-year renewal with no renewal, disposal like here, paid by the hauler, and a franchise fee of 10%. And those are the rates. Net to the hauler is going to be about $31. So if you granted the adjustment rate plus the normal fuel and CPI, I calculate will be about $20.09 per home. And I think that's it. That one is available to you. This is a calculation sheet of how we divvied up the costs, if you will, to have an average cost. So the whole cost increase for us is $6.2 million, or $4.8 million without fuel. And you can see all our cities there, and by each type of service, it's front load, roll off, residential, garbage and yard waste, recycling, the grapple truck, and then container delivery truck. We tallied up the total routes that they had. We multiplied the net routes that they had by the cost per route, and then that's how we came up with the ask, the dollars that we're asking you to give us in addition to the normal increases. So that's the request, and we would appreciate any consideration you give us.
You know, Ken, something popped up here that I didn't think about when you showed the Palm Coast proposal. How many of these cities charge WastePro a franchise fee?
Most.
Holly Hill doesn't charge a franchise fee.
Holly Hill does not. Daytona does not.
If we did, what would that do to you? What would that do to us?
Well, it raises the price to the customer.
But let's just say hypothetically, I said, all right, Ken, next contract year, I'm going to put a 10% franchise fee on you. Do you then turn around and have the right to increase our rate because of that?
Well, if we were bidding it, we would raise the rate in our.
No, but in the
calculation.
contract, it says we have the right to charge a franchise fee. We just don't. So I'm speaking off the cuff. So as you can see, I'm prepared.
I would look to get that covered. If you took 10% out of us,
Somehow you try to recoup.
Well, the consumer's gonna pay it.
yeah.
I mean, if we're already looking at.
Well, I don't know what the contract says. The contract says we can charge a franchise fee. The contract doesn't say they could increase our cost if we charge a franchise fee.
But as I understand our last workshop, we're talking about increasing our customer $2 a month.
That's what I'm
That's what
recommending.
you're recommending.
Correct.
And then now we're talking about another $2 a month for an unusual cost. And I would like you to reread in the contract what the unusual costs are. Because I didn't hear anything that I thought I
Well-
heard as an unusual cost.
Ken will have to give you his definition of what he feels the unusual cost is.
No, but it said the landfill moves or this and
Well,
that.
there's a vague part of this. It says either party may petition the other on the anniversary date of the contract for rate adjustments at reasonable times on the basis of unusual changes in the contract's cost of doing business, comma, such as revised laws, ordinance, or regulations, or changes in the location of the disposal.
See, I don't see any laws or ordinances that have changed. And the presentation we just saw, we could all show that presentation from every person that lives in our city because all of our costs have gone up. It's an unusual time. We just went through our budget session. Our city is no different than WastePro. The costs are the costs. Everything is going crazy. But the whole purpose of the CPI is to catch up the craziness. You as a business owner have to survive for 12 months until you get the CPI to catch up. The problem is, if the craziness continues at the scale, you're gonna have to tread water for another year to catch another CPI. The fuel will do whatever the fuel does, up and down. But my position as a business owner is, if you went from 14 to 11 to 7, projecting 4, times whatever your net is, 4% of whatever your gross is a huge number. So I think you're blessed to be profitable. And I think the CPI and the fuel will continue to make you whole as of today or when the contract renews, but we don't know what the future will hold for us. And I guess my question would be, is this your first presentation to a city? How many cities have you met with?
I've talked to all the cities. I've made presentations to 2.
Has anyone agreed to give you this additional unusual cost?
They have not. Well, I take that back. DeBerry made a change in their contract. So they allowed us, we had a cap on our CPI, and they allowed us to go above the cap to the actual CPI on their index.
But not
Well,
a change to this rate.
Right, but so we have no cap. So we're giving you the same. You got a better deal from them. I think you're getting a good deal from us anyways, because you have the CPI with no cap. We're not charging a franchise fee, and we're doing a fuel adjustment. I feel your pain. My profits are down. My payroll is up. My expenses are up. My FP&L bill is up. My taxes are up. But I keep doing it because I don't know what else to do. So that's how I feel. I'm not in favor of anything outside of the contract because it's not clear. And when the comma goes in there and it says changes to laws or ordinances or the landfill moves, that tells me not the cost of tires going up. should have said that, and it doesn't say that. So I'm sorry to put a damper on it, but I don't support it.
And if I could just say, our position is, and we talk to our corporate attorneys, it says comma such as. Those are examples. It's not an inclusive list of things that allow us to ask for. If we can't ask for unusual costs of doing business now, when could we? 40 years high in CPI, fuel at all-time highs, you can't get parts, everything double, triple in price. So that's why we're asking. We're not going to catch up with the CPI. We're getting at 8%. Your CPI is better than most. DeBerry is 4.18%.
What's ours?
It's going to be, it's 8%. 8.26. But my costs, when I did this, were up 24%. They're higher now because we did it about 2 months ago with our controller. Fuel has gone from $5 to $5.70. I think it's back to $5.50 now. And all our other costs continue to go up. We'll be past the end of the contract and never catch up.
You might catch up next year, because if the CPI is 20% next year, we have no cap. So you just have to tread water for 12 months for the CPIs to catch up. That's the way I'm looking at it. That's how I feel as a business owner. Mr. Danio can't raise the price of pizza to $30 because propane went up. You might want to keep your profits at 14%, but your profits are now 2.5%, and you're not putting money in the bank, but you're employing people, and the economy goes on until it changes. That's just how I'll shut up. That's how I read it.
You have the floor, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Curry?
I am kind of the same line as you are with the thinking. I don't know how I could, in good conscience, pass along your misfortunes with your company, and all of us are suffering, to my citizens who are also suffering the same misfortunes, raised fuel, cost of everything has gone up to them, and I don't know how I could approve something like this knowing that the pain is felt across the board, not to just certain companies or certain people. It's across the board. We're having to deal with it as a city, and it's unfortunate. I mean, I like the job that you guys are doing, but I can't pass that on to our citizens. I can't do it.
And we can't absorb it.
Yeah, we can't absorb it. Gosh, look at what we're talking about with our budget now. It's basically skin and bones.
I'm in the business, like he says, hemorrhaging is a good term lately, but, I like to believe this is gonna end at some point. I'm not gonna compromise my quality if I gotta take a hit for the next 12 months. I mean, I don't see WastePro doing anything different in their quality to jeopardize their reputation. Unfortunately, it is what it is. I mean, so I'm kind of in the same position.
Well, Commissioner Penny and both of you, when you say 12 months, we've already taken about a 15-month hit. So now we're going to take another 12-month hit, and probably another one after that. And I don't see us catching up with the CPIs, because the CPI is not an accurate reflection of our expenses. It hasn't been this year.
Because you're incurring it's a snapshot. It's like a balance sheet. It's that day in time whenever those numbers are projected. And so it won't be true. If you took the CPI today, tomorrow, next week, took your balance sheet today, tomorrow, next week, it's different. It fluctuates. And so I just don't see any way that we're already looking at raising the rates and raising the rates again. We're paying more for fluoride, we're paying more for chemicals, we're paying more for asphalt, we're paying more for tires, and that's the cost. I know our Public Works Director, if we had a contract for chlorine that locked in the price that had just a CPI, and the chlorine manufacturer came back and said, hey, our costs are up, would you give us some more money because it's unusual? No, we have a contract. And it's unfortunate, but luckily, our contract is good for another 5 years. And so the CPI and the fuel will continue to go up or down or sideways or however it goes. And then we'll have to worry about where the dust settles 5 years from now and when we put it back out for bid. But I think we're modifying something that we can't modify. We can't do it.
Say anything? Just pull the mic and pull the mic and.
I can understand.
Now you broke it.
It'll still work.
Understand it. I can follow what you're saying and all, because I see it every day in what I have to do. I see what the hydraulic costs are, because I deal with that every day. I see what the fuel costs, I deal with that every day, and the labor cost and everything. And I mean, to get a Class A technician for $38 an hour, whatever you say it is, that's a good deal. But I see it, but the main problem we have is we can only afford so much. We only have so much money to spend. We've already went over our budget and things and what we have, and we're around on the bare bones and all, and what can we afford? I mean, I agree with you. I know the costs are up. There's no question about it, but it's just how much we can afford to pay out of it, you know? That's what it amounts to me.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Mr. Forte, if I'm trying to understand this, if we were to, let's say this commission just said yes to his proposal tonight, how would that not trigger putting that out to bid? Like, for instance, if tow truck, no,
do that.
I know, but I'm just.
We'd welcome that.
No, what I'm saying is.
That's your opportunity.
What I'm saying is if a service comes back to us and tow trucks and say, and it's more lucrative for them, and we do that, I would think that we'd have to put that back out for bid. In this contract specifically, it says that we could decide to give them more than what we were contracted for?
They have a right to come in and request an adjustment based on this paragraph. And they have the right to come in here and provide you their support, and then you have to make an informed decision as to whether or not you feel that that's justifying a rate increase above the CPI and the fuel index. If you say yes, then my next response is, well, we then have to increase the resident rate from $2 a month to $4 a month. If you say no, I don't know what the fallback to that is. I don't know if they go back to their attorneys and the attorneys say, well, we have no choice, but we're going to breach the contract.
Right.
I don't know that they would do that. I don't suspect that they would do that, but I guess that could be an option, and then we would be forced to go out to bid.
Right.
Which is similar to what happened in Palm Coast, which,
Right.
Palm Coast, I can tell you their rate went from, in 2020, went from $22 to $21 at $29 to 22, or actually next year to $32.
Right.
So they went up $10 in a 2-year, 3-year period. And I suspect in 2027, when we go out to put this contract out for bid, we're going to see very similar cost increase.
Right. So, and that gets more towards the heart of my question too, is then if we have a contract and we hold you to that contract, as it sounds like this commission is doing, what, if they were to breach the contract, what would be the fallout for that? I know Scott's not here to speak to that, but.
He'd have to review the entire contract. And,
Okay.
and I said breach. I don't know if breach is the right word.
Break.
We're not interested in breaching the contract.
I don't know if that's the right word. So, they have a reputation to uphold, and I don't believe that WastePro would respond, well, if you don't give us the increase, we're going to cancel. I don't see that, and I didn't mean to infer that. I don't suspect that would be the case. It's an option, but I don't think it would be.
Okay.
There's not a good option. My read of the contract is I believe you can notify us that you wanted to cancel the contract. We can't.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. And and I sympathize with you. I do. As pointed out, several points, Vice Mayor Penny, as we sit up here, our first and foremost responsibility is to our citizens and to those ratepayers. And I think that that's where my colleagues are coming from. And I know that it's no disrespect to you. We hold you all with very high esteem, and we're grateful for the work that you do in our community. At the end of the day, I think that this commission is saying we have to just look out for the bottom dollar, and because we have this contract, that's what we want to hold you to. And with the increases in CPI, as pointed out, and with the gas, I know some other cities are not giving of what we are giving, and I sympathize with you. It's hard to stand up there. I know it's hard to ask for more, and I know you're in a tough position right now as well with these expenses that you're incurring. So, is that rain?
I don't know.
Loud. So with that, I don't know where we go from here. I don't know if this is we're going to have to agenda this or not. Go ahead and
No,
speak.
I just had one more thing to say. When we sat here 5 years ago, we took a lot of heat to
Speak right into the mic.
to a 10-year contract. We were pretty confident that WastePro was the one for the job. And I remember we were all getting kind of a little bit of slap in the head. Like, I can't believe you're signing a 10. And this is where we're on the other side of it. Like, now we might get some accolades and some, hey, way to stick up for our city, because we do have a contract, and we stuck our neck out for 10 years.
Okay. So, Mr. Forte, where are we at here? I know that we can't vote on this tonight. This is not a regular agenda item.
I don't know that you necessarily have to vote on it, but by consensus, I can get your direction. I'll double check that with Scott. If Scott says it's going to require a formal vote, I'll agenda an item at the next commission meeting. If it doesn't require a formal vote, then I can go by consensus and offer a letter back to WastePro.
Okay. All right. All right. With that, is there anything further from the commission? All right. Well, thank you for your time, Mr. DeForest.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here, meet before you. It's, I don't want to call you down the road and say, well, we can't afford to hire people. There's a shortage of people. That could come almost at any price, but we're going to continue to do a good job for you. Appreciate the time that you've given me tonight, and we'll keep moving forward. If you want to reconsider, I would love to see a little bit more in our paycheck every month.
Thank you very much, Mr. DeForest. I appreciate your professionalism, and we appreciate your service here in our great little city. So with that, is there anything further, Mr. Forte?
I have nothing more.
Is there anything further from this commission? All right, seeing none, this meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.